Love. Under the scope.
Hello, and welcome back to Love Under the Scope. This is a show where we delve into all of the ups and downs of being in a long-term relationship with another human being. I love topics that are kind of tricky and sticky, things that maybe aren't talked about so much, especially on social media, in media in general, TV shows and movies. I think we're shown this idea of a long-term relationship that is either really difficult or not realistic about what these relationships really look like, what it really feels like in the day-to-day to be with another person for many years and to share your life with that person. I started this show because there were times in my relationship that I felt alone, and I felt like maybe I was the only one experiencing those challenges with my partner, and we were the only ones going through hardship and conflict and arguments. And that a perfect relationship should never have conflict, shouldn't have arguments, should always be happy and always growing and always connected. And the deeper that I get into my relationship with my partner, the more I realize that that's just not true. These expectations that we have for our relationship can leave us feeling lost and confused about what is going on in our relationship. How can we get on the same page and actually become a team with our partner? It is possible. Even if you are in a place right now where you are arguing or you're having a bad time, maybe there's some life events that have showed up that are quite stressful for you to navigate. Being on a team with your partner can be helpful to get through those times. It's just about learning how to do that. Part of that, I believe, is being willing to look at and face the stuff that feels really tricky, the stuff that feels triggering, and the stuff that we, a lot of the time, don't really want to look at on some level because we know that it's going to be tough. And there might be awkwardness, there might be friction, there might be some kind of confrontation between the two of us. The cool thing is that if we can have patience and if we can learn to move through that confrontation, then we actually come out on the other side stronger as a couple. We really do. I have seen with my clients, I have seen it happen. I am your host, Kelby Lauren, and I work as a relationship coach and also a self-love coach. So I work with individuals and couples to really look at their beliefs and conditioning and how that is affecting our life today. Our conditioning and our beliefs, they have an effect on whether we know how to work with our partner as a team, to be able to create that ease and that smoothness in our relationship. No, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but doing this work, the inner work and the work in our relationship and taking a look at our shit is what I like to say, ultimately makes it so that there is room cleared out for new patterns, new ways of relating to your partner, new ways of seeing your relationship. I have experienced myself where nothing in the relationship physically changed. We didn't start doing some new behavior necessarily, but there was a shift in perception, either for me or maybe my partner, that I actually saw the relationship differently by doing work inside of myself. I was able to see and perceive the relationship differently, which actually does change the relationship on a deeper level sometimes than if we are to change our behavior. I also created this podcast because I knew that there were other people like me out there. I'll explain my situation for you. I had some iffy dating situations before my current partner. There was nothing wrong with my exes, nothing like that. I just didn't really know how to show up and be myself in a relationship. And that's what I learned to do in my current relationship with my fiance. And it's been really amazing. What I really wanted to help people do was to understand that you can love somebody so much. You can be in the perfect relationship for you, and you can have stuff going on inside of yourself that makes it hard to connect with your partner, that makes it hard to receive love or give love to them, and that makes it hard to just feel at ease with another human being, especially your partner. Your partner is going to be the person who reflects all of your stuff back to you, everything that you haven't wanted to face. Maybe you are facing it. All of that is going to be mirrored back to you with your partner. That's why we can experience some of the deepest heartbreaks with the people that we love the most, our romantic partner. I want to make it so crystal clear that it is completely normal to love someone and to want to know how to love them better and yet be struggling today, and to have arguments, have conflict. Sometimes conflict is actually not that bad. If you compare it to, we're not speaking to each other, we've completely shut down, and there's work you can do in that situation as well to reconnect. But if we're arguing, hey, at least we're communicating in some way. And guess what? You can learn to argue better too. Just like I said about the team, we can learn this kind of power couple dynamic where we actually learn to not only nip arguments in the bud before they happen, but if they are happening, we can learn to argue better. Isn't that an interesting concept? I always thought it was. It's not that we want to avoid argument completely. Misunderstandings are bound to happen in a relationship, but we can actually navigate the argument with more finesse as a couple. It really helps to do coaching and be on the same page with each other, supported and guided by a third party who understands that kind of a journey and who can help you guys to communicate and to get into the nitty-gritty and figure out what's going on, how are we going to move through it, how are we going to feel more like a team so that we can rely on each other. Both of our lives can be easier and more fun, and ultimately our lives will be more fulfilling as a result. Because if you think about it, our relationship with our partner affects everything else in our lives, our career, our family life, our children, our community, our pets. All of these things are affected by the amount of love that we have cultivated in our romantic relationships. Speaking of love, that is the topic for today. We're going to talk about love. This show is about love. So we are going to get into what love actually is. I'm going to attempt to define love, and I'm going to do this because I think it's interesting. A, I think the topic of love, there's a lot there. And B, because it's important for us to not necessarily define love black and white. There's no exceptions, but to at least understand what love is for us and to know, are we experiencing it or not? Is this love that I'm feeling not only in my relationship, but do I love myself? If we haven't experienced love in that capacity before, if we have never loved ourselves, we might want to know, hey, what is love? So that I can understand how to achieve it and how to open myself up more to experiencing love. Of course, love goes beyond our romantic relationships, so far beyond. Love is not just confined to Valentine's Day cards and to giving your partner roses and bringing them away on a vacation. Of course, all of these are examples of types of love, but love is so much more all-encompassing than that. It's quite a weighty topic. There are a lot of facets that are here, and yet love is also quite simple. I think there is something about love that can't be defined. Love goes beyond words. You know this if you have looked at a child or one of your pets that you are very fond of and your heart melts, or maybe a warmth washes over you when you feel that deep sense of love and that commitment to accepting that person or pet with your entire heart, no matter what they do. Unconditional love. I do think that's the angle I'm going to take for the rest of the episode, even when I say love. For me, love, if we're talking about the purest form is unconditional. If we're talking about self-love, particularly, we definitely want to develop unconditional love. Can I love myself through every iteration of my being, of my choices, of my mistakes, my downfalls, my unresolved shit that keeps coming up? Self-love, unconditional self-love would certainly be supportive if we're doing work on ourselves, if we're doing the inner work. There is an element of unconditional love that we want to have for ourselves. Beyond that, love actually heals. Love is a healing thing. I can't speak to the science of that, but I think we all can understand the times where we were in so much pain. Maybe we didn't feel seen. Maybe we were in physical pain. Whatever it was, you know the feeling when somebody finally comes to your aid and maybe sits with you and listens to you, is there for you. That's love. That is healing for us. Let's talk about what isn't love. And I want to preface this by saying that, of course, this is my opinion. This is my experience of what love isn't. I mistook a lot of behavior and characteristics of other people and myself too as love when it really wasn't. I have mistaken control for love. This is a big one. Love is not controlling. Love does not attempt to push. I believe that when we truly love someone, or at least the part of us that truly loves someone, because there can be many parts to us, we are very multifaceted beings. The part of us that truly loves knows that control and pushing my way of doing things onto you, that's not real love. That's not to say that love doesn't have boundaries. That if we want to be loving, we have to accept any type of behavior from our partner and never speak up. What it does mean is that we don't have this tight grip on our partner, watching their every move, judging what they are doing, what they're saying, how they are acting. Judgment would definitely be another part of what love isn't. Love doesn't judge. Love may observe. Love may experience, witness, but love doesn't judge. That doesn't mean we need to be non-judgmental beings. In fact, I don't know if it's possible to never judge. We are beings who are thinking thoughts all the time. We are observing, we are assessing. We do it for our survival in a lot of cases. So I'm not sure if it's not possible to judge. What I will say is it's possible to have that loving part of you that comes in when judgment comes up and knows that we're not going to go there. We are going to let ourselves float above the judgment that is there because we are human. Can we love ourselves through the judgment? Usually, by the way, if we're judging other people, we are judging ourselves as well. When that judgment comes up, can we also have another part of us, the loving part, the part of us that is unconditionally loving, that is hearing the judgment and loving ourselves and others, our partner, our children, our family, our friends, loving them through it. Love is never should or shouldn't have. I should have done it this way. I was so wrong. I should have done this. He shouldn't be so this. She should never have said that. You can hear the judgment in that. Love is never should or shouldn't have. Love doesn't obsess over what happened in the past. Love isn't obsessing over what's going to happen in the future. Love is here right now, all around us, all encompassing. Love doesn't pick and choose who is going to receive it and who is not, who is worthy of receiving it and who is not deserving. Love is all around, everywhere. We all have love within us, whether we can receive it, whether we can acknowledge it or feel it and accept that it is there. That's another story. But love doesn't choose who's going to be receiving based on worthiness. You know what love isn't? Fear. Love isn't afraid of not being enough, of not measuring up, of what others are going to say or think. Love isn't afraid of becoming destitute and poor and dying. Love isn't afraid of death. People who have developed a loving part of themselves and they know how to make choices from that part, they are learning to not choose out of fear. When we make choices out of fear, we are making a choice based on something that is not real. A lot of the time we have projected some outcome. Well, they're not going to like me if I choose this. They may leave me if I choose to say this or do this, or I choose not to do that. I choose not to go to that party. They may not love me. They may reject me and they may leave me. Love goes so far beyond that fear. And by the way, love will still be there if you do make that choice out of fear. That's okay too. Love will still be there for you. Love is not something that we can force ourselves to feel, because love is not brutish. Love doesn't force its way in. It's patient. Love is patience. Love is, I'm here when you are ready. I'm here when you're ready to experience me. I'm here on your time, not my time. You can't miss out on love. You can't get too old for love. You can't get too broken, too traumatized to experience love. Love is something you were born worthy of. Love is patient. Love can wait for you to be ready. In fact, have you ever, while having an argument with your partner, taken time to step away and breathe? Because you knew that if you didn't, you were going to say something you didn't mean. You were going to speak out of fear, out of anger, out of resentment and frustration, not from love. If we are in tune with our intuition and in tune with ourself, we can sense when we are speaking from fear versus love. We can feel when that other part of us has come forward and is just desperately flinging words at the situation and screaming and yelling and throwing a tantrum potentially, or maybe shutting ourselves away. Love doesn't shut itself away. Love softens any situation that it enters. Anything that feels really hard and impossible to solve or to face or to manage, love comes in and helps us to soften so that we can actually see the situation differently. Here's a little mini exercise for you. Has there ever been a time where you judged somebody on first glance and maybe you thought some pretty horrible things about them? Maybe you judged them for their looks. Maybe you judged them for not fitting in, for dressing a certain way, for speaking a certain way. And then you found out a little bit more information. Maybe you actually speak to them. Maybe they tell you something, or you find out a little tidbit about them and your perception of them completely changes. I have had this happen a humbling amount of times where I went straight into judgment, fear, I am not enough, comparing. And then I actually spoke to the person and they were quite nice. And I was able to soften and completely see them from a different point of view. This is just a little example of how that can happen. There could have been another time where maybe you hated somebody. I, in the past, have really disliked my neighbors for their behavior. Maybe I thought they were being careless and thoughtless. And then I found out something about them that brought in a little more compassion and understanding, and actually cut down some of the anger and the fear that I was acting out of, because I was able to bring in compassion. I didn't force compassion. I didn't sit in meditation and obsessively affirm that I have compassionate towards this person, or pray to God begging and pleading to have compassion. Well, maybe I might have done that actually. The point is, it took time for love to come in. Love isn't sharp. Love doesn't slap you in the face or throw a brick at you. It doesn't hit you like a train. There's a good one. Have you been in relationships where love hit you like a train? Can you look back now and maybe ask yourself, was that love? Does love throw itself at you in your face Is love like a Vegas show, glitzy and sparkling and shouting at you for your attention? I don't think so. I myself have experienced relationships where somebody said, I love you very fast, maybe weeks into the relationship. And I felt pressured to say it back to them. Maybe on some level, I did feel it. It's not to say that I didn't feel love or they didn't actually love me on any level. But the kind of love that I'm talking about, it goes real deep. In fact, I would compare it to a very low vibration. If you were to play a crystal bowl, that feeling of vibration moving through your body, clearing out shit and stagnance from your body, from your mind. It's kind of how love feels for me. It's healing, it's cleansing. It feels like a balm. If you ever had a really itchy patch of skin, maybe you got a bug bite or you touched poison ivy, that feeling when you first put the anti-itch cream on and it just feels like, you can relax. There's a sense of calm and a sense of peace and stillness that is there with love. It's not rushed. It's not, I just said I love you and now I'm waiting for you to say it back. And it's got to be in the next couple days or else I'm moving on. That's not love. Love isn't jealous or manipulative. Love isn't looking around and wondering who my partner might be interested in other than me, monitoring what my partner is doing and what he's looking at. This goes back to the control piece. Love isn't looking to manipulate or force anyone to do anything. Love doesn't need you to feel it. Love is like an invitation. Do you want to meet me here in love? Have you felt that way in a partnership before in your life? That you were able to relax into a relationship? For me, that would mean moving slower, at least emotionally. For some people, physically. What do you require in order to move organically into love, to open up to love? Love doesn't come in like an arrow and pierce you in the heart. Love isn't suffering either, by the way. It's not, well, I have to stay in this relationship because it's been so long. Love doesn't want you to suffer. I'm using the term love over and over again, like it's a actual person. But I think it helps to personify. People will use different personifications of love, actually. If you're religious, if you're a Christian, you might use Jesus, you might use God. Other religions might use Buddha. We like to have this archetypal figure that represents unconditional love. In my opinion, it makes it more solid, this idea of what love is. We know what Jesus was and wasn't. Well, a lot of his story anyway. Parts of it, I'm sure we don't know. We know what he was about. We know what he taught. And so it helps us to understand this love idea, the concept. What does it mean? What does it mean on this earth, in this physical realm, this day-to-day life that we live? What does it mean to really love? If you look at these figures, Jesus, Buddha, others that I'm not aware of, none of them want us to suffer. None of them believed that you had to suffer for any reason, in my opinion. I'm sure there are people who would disagree with that, but I believe Jesus would have said, no suffering necessary. Love, real love, moves us away from suffering and allows us to see the world clearly. I'm going to come back to this idea that love doesn't mean having no boundaries. In fact, I've come around to that more and more recently. I think at one point in my life, I thought that being loving meant that you had to allow things to happen to you that you didn't like. If people treated you a certain way, just smile. If you got something that you didn't ask for, or you were disappointed by some circumstances, you just had to smile and keep on moving. That's not true either. I like to bring up the idea of a loving mother for this point. If you think about a loving mother, does she allow her children to do whatever the hell they want at any time of the day? Does she allow her children to speak to her in any way that they want? Does she allow them to put themselves into dangerous situations where they could be harming themselves. Maybe they're 3 years old climbing a tree. Is she just going to watch and go, oh, this is fine. This is totally fine because I love him. I'm going to allow my 3-year-old son to climb that tree. No, she steps the fuck in and stops him. She teaches him how to be respectful of himself, of other people. She teaches him how to walk the world with love. She gives him boundaries in which he can explore the world and actually be more safe. Isn't the world more safe when mothers are giving their children some sort of boundaries? I'm not saying over the top boundaries, not allowing them and hovering over them all the time, but some sort of structure so that the child can relax and play within the bounds. Children like boundaries. Human beings like boundaries. We like to know that we exist within some sort of limits. This is why we like routine. We like to be around the same people, our friends. A lot of us have boundaries with work when we're willing to pick up the phone, and when we're not willing to. We have boundaries with our family, what we're willing to listen to, how we're willing to be treated, and we have boundaries with our partner, hopefully. Doing inner work and working with a coach, you can learn to develop your boundaries, and it behooves any relationship, especially if you're wanting to be a team, having boundaries for yourself, for what you are willing and not willing to accept, what you're willing and not willing to do in your relationship, how you're going to communicate that with your partner in a loving way so that they can understand their boundaries with you and they can then act safely within those boundaries. They can understand your internal experience because you lovingly shared your boundaries with them. You didn't keep it all in and stay mad at them over the course of a week and then explode at them when they did one little tiny thing wrong. That's not love. I want to dispel the myth that in order to be loving, you would have to accept everything your partner ever did to you or didn't do, and you just would have to be okay with it. That doesn't allow for self-love. So we're learning this dance now between I'm loving myself and I'm loving others. How am I going to walk that line? It doesn't have to be a difficult thing to learn how to do. How am I going to meet my needs and also understand my partner's needs? And what can we do in order for those two things to meet? That's what love does. Love extends a hand. Love extends an ear, a listening ear, shoulder to cry on. Love is an invitation. Would you like to dance with me? I may step on your toe. I may fall. Do you want to at least try? Love can be awkward and fumbling sometimes. If we haven't experienced love in a deep level in our lives before, real love can feel awkward and weird and uncomfortable, and we may want to turn it away. We've all seen the movie where the girl finally meets the nice guy and she's not interested because he was too nice or he wasn't edgy enough. Experiencing real love when you haven't really known that before in your life, it can be jarring. It's certainly a huge learning experience, and it takes guts to keep choosing the thing that is kind of uncomfortable. If you haven't felt real love, real deep love in your relationships before, if you felt fearful, if you were making choices out of fear, either they were going to leave you, they're going to hurt you, they weren't going to love you anymore, and now you're in a relationship where that's not a question. It's not a question that they're just going to pick up and leave tomorrow. They've shown you repeatedly over and over that they choose you and they love you. It may require time for you to adjust and also to feel turned on sexually. You may have to learn how to be aroused again because maybe you learned that having sex was something that you do out of fear, that you do because it's a chore, or you do it because you're trying to get something from the other person. You may think that you're getting love from the other person because you are having sex with them. Let me tell you, my friend, that's not usually love. In fact, I'll definitively say the love that we think we are getting because we are having to have sex with somebody is not love. Therefore, when we are really loved by somebody, there's no longer that little carrot dangling in front of us. If you have sex with me, I'm going to love you. That's not a thing anymore. So we actually have to reprogram our turn on. This is an aspect of real love. If you grew up with a lot of disconnection, maybe you disconnected from your family, from yourself, from the things that you liked to do. Maybe you were prone to escapism. You isolated yourself, or whatever behavior you took on in order to deal with disconnection. That may follow you into your relationship and actually block love from flowing. If you want to feel this type of love and you don't know where to start, maybe you haven't experienced anything like it before, I always coach my clients if they feel like they've never felt love or they don't know what it feels like or looks like or what to expect. I would start with either a pet or a child that you love dearly. I usually go with a pet because there's something special about pets. They have this kind of effect on us that makes it easier to love them unconditionally, no matter what they do. We kind of see pets as just these innocent beings, which they are. I love my animals. I will guide my clients to think about a pet and close their eyes and really feel that their pet is near them, that maybe they just got home from a long trip and they're seeing their pet for the first time, or maybe they're just getting home from the grocery store and their pet is meeting them at the door. What does that feel like for you? How do you feel? Literally, how does your body feel? How are you thinking? How are you holding yourself? Is there a fluttering in your heart? Do you feel warmth? Does a smile spread across your face? What happens when you see your pet or some other being that you love unconditionally? Whatever you feel in that moment, whether it's a sensation or a thought that you have or a memory, anything that comes up for you, that is your first starting point for growing the love inside of you. That is your seed of love that you can continue to water each day. You can actually cultivate that feeling in you. So let's say it's a warmth in your heart. You could begin to meditate and actually breathe briefly. It doesn't have to be some long, 3-hour meditation. You could sit for 5 minutes and breathe and be with that loving feeling and see what happens. Just maybe be curious about what that sensation is. Maybe you could feel it as you breathe starting to spread slowly across your body. What does that feel like? What else comes up? Is there anything there? That's what meditation is about. It has a bad rap for being this practice where you go in and you have no thoughts in your mind and you're just sitting there empty. That's not true. It's simply a period of time where you are putting your focus and your awareness onto something usually specific. Although sometimes meditations will take you on quite the journey. Usually you're starting out with something quite specific, like this sensation that you have pinpointed by visualizing and feeling your pet with you. As you begin to develop this love within you, you can learn to kind of like an avatar airbender, you can become a love bender. You can learn using your intuition. I always encourage people to use their intuition, your gut feeling, to move through this process. People can guide you, like myself. If you were to work with me, I could guide you to the love within you. I could give you practices for how to grow that love. I could support you through difficulties that you're having as you grow love. I can hold your hand through the process, but ultimately, it is your process, your experience of love. I cannot tell you. Remember, love doesn't force, love doesn't control. I can't tell you what love is. It's a feeling. You can become this love bender, like I said, where you are actually directing the love back to yourself. Not only are you growing it within, you're learning how to speak to yourself, how to hold yourself through difficult situations. You are developing that loving part of you that you can learn to grow and water. You can water this seed so that it grows within you. Then, once you do that enough, you will start to hear that loving voice that is talking in all these different scenarios. It might be very quiet at first. It might be a tiny little whisper that you could barely discern throughout all the chaos and noise. You will start to hear this voice, and this voice will help you through the hardest shit in your life if you continue to grow it. It will get bigger and bigger and louder and more clear. You will be able to sit with this part of you if you're going through turmoil, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're having a great day. Even still, that part of you will be there, and you can actually listen. Listen for what this part of you is saying. This is similar to when people speak with Jesus. They're bringing him in and having a dialogue with him. You can do this with this loving part of yourself. In fact, what does this part of you look like? I would delve into that. How is this part of you presenting themselves? Is she wearing a dress? Does she have her hair styled? Does she have a certain look on her face? Is there an energetic feeling to this part of you? That can be really helpful. That vibrational feeling that I described earlier, that's how I experience it. How does it feel for you to feel this part of you come up? Do you sit more tall? Does your heart melt a little? Are you able to relax your body just a little bit more? When you're in a pickle and you have a few different choices in front of you, you don't know what to choose. Here's a part of you that you can bring forward and actually ask, what would be the loving thing to do here? What would actually help this part of me to grow? This is not a special power, by the way. There's nobody on this planet that is more equipped to do this type of thing, to grow love within them, to become more able to receive love and to give it and to walk with love. This is not anything that you have to learn any special skills or do some classes, get a degree in love. You don't have to learn from anybody. You don't have to pay some teacher $1,000. Nothing is required of you except for a willingness to be open, to receive, and to allow love to soften you. I say allow because that ego will come in and go, no. If you haven't experienced love, true love before, deep love, the ego might actually be afraid of it because it doesn't know what it feels like to lose control. Like I said, love is not controlling. Love requires us to let go, to move into the present, to be willing to let go of the past, and to not get wrapped up in the future. Presence can be scary for the ego because it means we're not thinking about how we can control the future and how we can control the outcome, how we're going to make sure that we are safe. And ironically, we close ourselves off from love in the process, and love is safe. If I love myself truly, deeply, I'm safe all the time. I can now trust any decision I make, even if it doesn't go according to plan. I love myself, so I'll figure out a way. I'll forgive myself for anything that I may feel is a mistake, especially from my past. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. Love comes in and goes, shh, it's okay. No love lost. Part of being able to be a more loving person is that softening, that willingness, just a willingness. Doesn't mean that right away you're going to know how to do this. Right away you're going to wake up overnight and the love will be here. You'll be surrounded by it. It's going to take over your body. Love everything. Love everyone. I can't say I feel that way all the time. Love is patient, and love will wait for you to be ready. So take your time, please. Take your time so that when the love shows up, you really can feel it. You don't have to grit your teeth and go, here it is, I'm loving, I'm loving. You can be soft and you can receive it. And you can see the beauty of the love that is all around us all the time, all the time. It's always there. So just be patient with yourself. You will get there if you have the interest, the curiosity, and the willingness. You will get there. Funny enough, it's almost Thanksgiving and we're moving into Christmas time, the holidays. We're all around family, most likely. And as wonderful and warm and cozy as that can be, this time can be triggering as well. I have experienced that myself, that's for sure. So this would be an especially interesting time to be with that loving part of yourself and to ask, what would be the loving thing to do? I'm in this uncomfortable situation with a family member. They're saying something that's triggering to me. What is the loving way to respond? I want to clarify too, that doesn't mean that you just stand there and smile and don't let it affect you, because God knows it's affecting you. What is the loving thing to do means what would be loving for me and also for them. And sometimes being loving is serving up a boundary. And that can be done in a very soft and gentle way if needed. Sometimes a boundary is needed to be placed in a firm way, and that would be the loving thing. Sometimes people need to know how we feel and that it's not okay to go there. So how can we communicate that lovingly? I've recommended the book Nonviolent Communication several times on this show, and I'm going to plug it again here. It's a great book for expressing boundaries, and he actually gives a step-by-step process for doing so in a way that, to me, is as loving as possible. Being loving means being clear, clear-headed, clear with our communication. And there's a directness too, I think, that comes with love. It's not harsh, but it might be direct. Loving communication can certainly be direct. I hope too that if you ever find yourself in that situation where you need to put a boundary down in a loving way, that you can enjoy the satisfaction of standing up for yourself. Hopefully the person that you are putting the boundary down with too can understand. If not, okay, big whoop. You did what you had to do. But it can feel really good to express a boundary. Recently, I expressed one to a family member, and she received it with so much kindness and so much love. It felt really good to actually say out loud the thing that I had been thinking for a long time. It was very self-loving to do that. That concludes the episode for today. All About Love. Another great book by Bell Hooks, All About Love. I love that one. And I was going to talk more about it in this episode, but I realized I just wanted to kind of take my own path and explore it on my own terms. No matter where you are on the love journey, whether you are open to receiving it all the time, or maybe you're very closed off. Maybe it wasn't easy for you to receive love in your childhood, and so you've carried that into adulthood. If that's the case, I would love to work with you. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is @coachedbykelby. You can also reach out to me via email if you'd like to work together. You can reach me at coachedbykelby@gmail.com. I am also open to receiving suggestions for episode topics or questions that you might have that I could answer anonymously on the show. Please do send those over. And as usual, if you could give me a rating or a like on YouTube, a subscribe, that would be fabulous. And I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.